faithfully delivering value and interpreting great books worldwide. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. I'm Woo Hyun. Today we're interpreting the book Modernity and the Holocaust, written by sociologist Zygmunt Bauman. Bauman was Polish and later lived in England, becoming one of contemporary's most renowned sociologists and philosophers. You might have heard of postmodernism. Bauman was a key architect of this concept. But Bauman's most famous work isn't about postmodernism. It's this book, Modernity and the Holocaust. Simply put, modernity means the defining characteristics of modern society. In Bauman's book, modernity operates on two levels, starting with the spiritual dimension. Here, modernity represents a rational spirit, a desire for control, humanity's drive to understand and transform everything. Secondly, there's the institutional level, referencing efficient, orderly, modern social organizations. As for the Holocaust, it refers to World War II's genocide against Jews, something I'm sure you're familiar with. In this book, Bauman presents a rather startling argument. He contends the Nazis' horrific Holocaust wasn't just anti-Semitism or Germany's anomaly, but an expression of modernity itself. Usually, rational spirit and efficient organization signify civilization and progress. Yet in specific contexts, these modern traits can produce catastrophes like the Holocaust. The Holocaust wasn't modernity's opposite. Rather, they're like two sides of a coin, inseparable. Now, why would Bauman say this? Let's follow his analysis through three dimensions: ideology, institutions, and technology. First, ideology. The Nazis' genocide wasn't traditional anti-Semitism, but modern ideological anti-Semitism. This has deep roots in European history. Since the 1st century AD, Jews were exiled from their Hebrew homeland, dispersing across Eurasia, many settling in Europe where Christian locals despised Jewish believers, permitting settlement only in subordinate positions. They couldn't own land, couldn't participate in politics, and could only engage in economic activities like managing property for nobles, collecting rent from peasants, or running small businesses. So in the eyes of nobles, Jews were inferior people. But in the eyes of peasants and townsfolk, Jews were greedy exploiters. Jews became intermediaries. As intermediaries between nobles and commoners, they faced discrimination or hatred from both sides. However, during the long medieval period, this hostility wasn't deadly. Expulsions or persecutions of Jews occurred occasionally, but never reached the intensity and scale of genocide. Yet the modernizing process that valued rational control and efficiency changed everything. Why? Bauman says modernity has a horticultural culture characteristic, meaning how a skilled gardener would tend a garden. This gardener would classify all elements. What are tools, seeds, fertilizer, weeds, pests? For weeds or pests, the gardener would eliminate them without hesitation. Unfortunately, in the eyes of the Nazis who embraced horticultural culture, Jews were like weeds or pests, to be isolated, controlled, and even exterminated. And once they were eliminated, a better, more efficient, more moral German empire would be established. But why did the Nazis view Jews as weeds or pests? This involves racist ideology. Like horticultural culture, racism is also a modern idea. It originated in the Western Age of Discovery, serving colonial conquests elsewhere, with the core idea that different races have inherent superiority and inferiority. And in the Nazi design for a 1,000-year German empire, racism reached its dangerous peak. The Nazis believed Germans were the most noble race, must ensure purity of blood, and other Aryans were also acceptable. As for Jews, they were an inferior, corrupting race that endangered the health of the Aryan race. A horticultural culture to build an ideal world, and a racism that views Germans as superior and Jews as inferior. These two aspects of modernity combine to form the ideological roots of the Nazis' ethnic cleansing against Jews. Hitler believed that since Jews had no territory of their own, they couldn't wage national wars to expand power. So they resorted to underhanded, sneaky tactics, making them particularly fearsome and evil enemies. Such enemies must be eliminated. However, even combining horticultural culture and racism wasn't enough to achieve the genocide of Jews. Indeed, Hitler, as the Führer of Nazi Germany, issued the task of cleansing Jews. But when Hitler proposed this task, it was only theoretical. He had a vague goal of removing Jews from among Germans. As for how to remove them or where to remove them to, it was unknown. So, how did this vague instruction to cleanse Jews evolve step by step into the most horrific genocide in human history? That's what we're going to discuss. The second aspect is the modern bureaucratic system practiced by the German Nazis. Today, when we hear the term bureaucracy, we might think of a cumbersome, outdated system with inefficiency, rampant corruption, and nothing new since ancient times. The bureaucracy Bauman discusses in the book isn't like that. It's an institutional innovation in Western political modernization, a basic form for effectively managing large social groups in capitalist societies. In 1745, French scholar de Gournay coined the term bureaucracy to describe the governmental form of Prussia at the time. In the early 20th century, German sociologist Max Weber provided a clearer explanation of this system. She said that bureaucracy, as a modern social system, has several characteristics. First, rational division of labor, where each member has clear responsibilities and authority. Second, clear hierarchy. Bureaucracy must be a hierarchical power system. One level manages the next. And thirdly, rule following. In the organization, no action can be arbitrary. It must follow rules or discipline. To sum it up, bureaucracy is a rational and efficient system. When such a system operates, the entire bureaucracy works to achieve the goals given by superiors with the highest efficiency. As for how to achieve it specifically, it follows rational judgment. They would design the most feasible plan based on specific conditions and circumstances. This plan will continuously encounter unforeseen problems during execution. What they need to do is address those problems and come up with new rational solutions. And the German Nazis practiced exactly this kind of strict bureaucratic system. Führer Hitler has issued the order to cleanse the Jews, demanding a German empire without Jews, but without specifying how to achieve this goal. What should the officials tasked with completing this mission do? Reason guides them to start from where it's most appropriate. And first, they precisely define the target, determining who exactly is a Jew. The Nuremberg laws passed in 1935 did exactly this. According to these laws, anyone with at least one Jewish grandparent was considered Jewish. Next, the Nazis registered those who fit this definition, creating files for each person. After that, they separated Jews from other German citizens, forcing them into ghettos. Then they proceeded to expel Jews from German territory. It's important to note that initially, the Nazi leadership had no plan for mass extermination. So, in 1940, Himmler, head of the SS and Gestapo, wrote in a memo, "We do not want to physically exterminate an entire people, as that is fundamentally un-German and impossible to achieve." And in the same year, Reinhard Heydrich, Himmler's deputy, known as the Blonde Beast, issued a statement indicating genocide. For the German people, a civilized nation, it would be very undignified behavior. However, during the process of expelling Jews, the Nazis encountered problems. At that time, most European countries were unwilling to accept Jewish refugees from Germany, so where to expel the Jews became a headache for Nazi bureaucrats. They researched many solutions for this. For example, Adolf Eichmann, responsible for Jewish affairs, went to Haifa and Cairo in 1937 to study the possibility of relocating Jews to Palestine. After that, they spent an entire year planning the so-called Madagascar Plan to see if they could ship all Jews to the island of Madagascar in Africa. But these plans were clearly unworkable. They also considered implementing mass sterilization on Jews to make the race disappear through the extinction of future generations. But performing sterilization surgeries one by one on Jews wasn't feasible either. Meanwhile, as Germany achieved successive victories early in 221, the task of cleansing Jews became increasingly daunting. On one hand, Germany gradually occupied Poland, Czechoslovakia, and other regions, causing the number of Jews under its jurisdiction to surge dramatically. On the other hand, intoxicated by military victories, they felt they would not only rebuild a powerful German empire, but also create a Europe under German rule. So expelling Jews from Germany escalated to expelling them from all of Europe. How could such a difficult task be accomplished? Evidence shows that in July 1941, Nazi bureaucrats planned to deport all European Jews to the Soviet Union. In the vast territories of Asia, this plan assumed Nazi leadership believed German forces would defeat the Soviet Red Army within weeks. However, the German army became bogged down on the Eastern Front. With growing Jewish populations and no receiving territory, physical extermination became the most feasible and efficient method of cleansing. In October 1941, Himmler ordered all Jewish deportation actions to cease. 3 months later, at the Wannsee Conference, Nazi bureaucrats led by Heydrich implemented systematic genocide, the infamous final solution. What remained was the bureaucratic system. Interdepartmental coordination, meticulous planning, budgeting, resource allocation, designing suitable technology and equipment were all routine bureaucratic activities. Now we see modern bureaucracy enabled Nazis to rationally and efficiently execute the Führer's order to cleanse Jews. Their approach, from defining to isolating to expelling, and finally exterminating Jews, were logical solutions to emerging problems, creating an inevitable progression. According to Bauman, with bureaucracy in place, the fate of European Jews was sealed when the first German official wrote the first rule expelling Jews. Therefore, Bauman views modern bureaucracy as the fundamental cause enabling the Holocaust. The Nazi bureaucratic system strictly executed Hitler's orders, progressing from defining and isolating Jews to expulsion and finally genocide, constructing history's most efficient and brutal killing machine. Now let's explore the third aspect, technology's connection between modernity and the Holocaust. The Nazis' primary methods for the Holocaust, extermination camps and gas chambers, were themselves products of modernity. Extermination camps were concentration camps specifically for mass murder. Jews were transported in overcrowded trains to these camps, taken to gas chambers to be poisoned, and their bodies then sent to crematoriums. Ah, Countless living people turned into wisps of smoke shortly after the trains arrived. Industrial scale facilities and processes greatly increased slaughter efficiency, while modern division of labor and management maintained the genocide efficiently and steadily. For example, Auschwitz, the largest Nazi concentration camp, murdered over 1 million Jews in 4 years. At its peak in 1943, it could kill 47,000 Jews per day and dispose of the bodies. Only modern industry could produce such methods. Before extermination camps, Germany witnessed a large-scale persecution event. On November 9th to 10th, 1938, under Nazi instigation, Hitler Youth, Gestapo, and SS members, disguised as civilians, rampaged through streets, vandalizing Jewish homes, shops, and synagogues. This event is notoriously known as Kristallnacht, Crystal Night or Night of Broken Glass, named for the countless shattered windows. Bauman calculated that during that terrifying night, fewer than 100 people were killed across all riot-struck German cities. And if Kristallnacht occurred daily, Germans would kill about 100 Jews each day. At this rate, they'd kill over 36,000 Jews yearly, totaling 180,000 in 5 years. How many Jews did Germany actually murder during 1211? Over 6 million. This shows street rage and violence. No matter how bloody and brutal, are primitive and inefficient genocide tools. Extermination camps, like Auschwitz, extended the factory system, operating like assembly lines, where raw materials were people and the product was death, using poison gas from Germany's advanced chemical industry. The symbol of modern factory systems, smokestacks, belched thick smoke from incinerated human bodies. In Europe's precisely laid railway networks continuously delivered new materials to these factories. This method of slaughter was bone-chilling, yet undoubtedly rational, scientific, planned, and coordinated. Bauman writes, sardonically, in the final solution, our much vaunted industrial potential and technical knowledge successfully accomplished an unprecedented task, demonstrating undeniable capability. Now we understand why the Nazi genocide was a product of modernity in ideology, institutions, and technology. First, ideologically, the genocide connected deeply with horticultural culture and racism. Second, institutionally, the Holocaust was tightly linked to modern bureaucracy. Finally, technologically, it fully utilized modern industrial techniques. Moreover, modern bureaucracy and industrial technology liberated Nazi perpetrators from moral qualms while executing their tasks. Most Nazis were ordinary people. Few were psychopaths or abnormal. In fact, perpetrators couldn't appear fanatical or sadistic. They had to follow orders calmly, efficiently, and professionally. So how did these normal people shed moral self-reproach? First, bureaucracy, as discussed, is a hierarchical administrative power system. In this power hierarchy, people simply obey superiors and follow organizational discipline. Each person considers not their actions' consequences, but whether they've completed assigned tasks. Here, technical responsibility replaces moral responsibility as the primary obligation. People comfortably shift moral blame to superiors, even justifying themselves. I only did what I was told to do. And Eichmann defended himself this way during his Jerusalem trial. Additionally, bureaucracy's detailed division of labor blurs moral awareness. In the Holocaust machinery, each person was just a cog in a vast bureaucratic machine. Many didn't even know what consequences their actions would cause. Those office clerks scheduling train timetables never witnessed the horrors inside gas chambers. Workers making bombs in factories didn't care whether their bombs hit enemy tanks or other targets. In reality, most bureaucrats just drafted memos, drew blueprints, made phone calls, and attended meetings. Their minds were filled with cost reports, leaving no room for conscience or morality. Bauman laments that in bureaucracy, most people either neglect moral tests or are morally indifferent. So, they all seem like criminals, yet none seem like criminals. Regardless, they collaborated to form an efficient killing machine. Meanwhile, modern methods like gas chambers drastically reduced perpetrators' moral empathy during killings. Early Nazi extermination in Germany used machine guns. Victims brought before soldiers and shot point blank. But officers soon found this inefficient, wasteful, and psychologically scarring for soldiers. So they researched alternative killing technologies. Ideally, technology hiding victims from executioners, leading to gas chambers, reducing killers from blood-soaked butchers to sanitation officers pouring chemicals through roof vents. Doing this, they couldn't even see inside the room. Psychological experiments prove distance is crucial. Greater separation reduces moral sympathy. Beheading with a knife causes distress. Sniper killing is easier. And if all they do is press a button in a bright, clean room controlling precision missiles, getting targets kilometers away, their conscience remains lighter. Bauman notes that modern warfare turns killing into a matter of distance and technology. The stronger your military tech, The farther from enemies you operate, the easier killing becomes. It might just require pressing a button or tapping a keyboard, a cruel paradox. The more efficient modern killing methods become, the less killers feel like murderers, enabling more focused execution. So, on one hand, Nazi bureaucracy replaced moral responsibility with technical responsibility. On the other, gas chambers minimized moral distress. Modern bureaucracy and killing tech indirectly ensured the Holocaust's efficiency. All right, we've covered how Nazi genocide reflected modernity in ideology, institutions, and technology. But Bauman's thinking didn't stop there. He continued exploring, daring to address a taboo question: the modernity of the victims. Bauman argues Jews, though victims, also bore responsibility for the catastrophe. In a sense, Jews were Nazi accomplices, actively cooperating with the genocide. This cooperation was driven by rationality, another hallmark of modernity. A crucial element was establishing Judenräte, Jewish councils, during Nazi ethnic cleansing. Nazi bureaucrats selected Jewish elites to lead local communities. These council members were respected elders, educated, intellectual, rational. Initially, they provided records, meticulously archiving Jewish information. Then they persuaded fellow Jews to obey Nazi orders and enter ghettos, claiming it offered autonomy in hostile environments. Next, they maintained order in Jewish districts. They wanted Nazis to see Jews as well-behaved, trustworthy modern citizens. In Eastern European Jewish communities, councils even initiated rescue through labor campaigns. They told fellow Jews, "Germans dislike us because we work as merchants and middlemen, not laborers. So we should work diligently to show Germans our labor value. When they realize we're not economic parasites but value creators, they'll stop expelling and harming us." Of course, rescue through labor was wishful thinking. Jewish expulsions and persecution continued intensifying. As Jews were cleared from ghettos onto death camp trains, what were Jewish councils doing? They helped Nazis create transport lists, deciding which fellow Jews boarded trains and when. They ensured fellow Jews arrived at designated gathering points on time and maintained order. They still followed rational principles based on numerical calculation. Sacrifice few to save many became their mantra. They feared Nazi threats. Unless some were sent to die, soldiers would storm ghettos and kill everyone. They seemed to believe Nazi lies that each group sent away would be the last. On September 4th, 1942, after sending thousands of elderly, sick, and children to Auschwitz, Lodz ghetto chairman Rumkowski explained he complied because refusal would bring crueler replacements, causing more deaths. Livius Jewish leader Gens similarly claimed, "With 100 victims I save 1,000. With 1,000 I save 10,000. Thus, Jewish councils facilitated every step of Nazi genocide, ensuring smooth operations until they too ended in Ukrainian ditches or Auschwitz chimneys. In fact, even in extermination camps, Jews worked for Nazis. Sonderkommandos handled gruesome tasks, removing bodies from gas chambers, cutting hair, searching for hidden jewelry and gold teeth, then burying or burning corpses. Why did these Jewish Sonderkommandos do this? Bauman believes it wasn't cowardice, but rationality, humanity's last rational instinct for self-preservation. They chose to ignore atrocities against fellow Jews as long as they survived another day. Thus, Jews became Nazi tools through rationality. Driven by sacrifice few to save many logic, Jewish councils sent countless fellow Jews to death trains. Driven by self-preservation logic, Sonderkommandos assisted in murdering and disposing of their own people. Blaming these Jews may be unfair. Most were ultimately killed, but we can't help but sigh. Now we understand the relationship between modernity and the Holocaust. On the Nazi side, horticultural culture and racist ideology birthed the genocide idea. Bureaucracy evolved it into the final solution. Modern industrial technology enabled its efficient execution. On the Jewish side, Utilitarian and self-preservation rationalism made them lamb-like victims without meaningful resistance. Thus, Bauman states, the Holocaust wasn't a deviation on humanity's progressive path, nor a cancer in civilization's healthy body. It merely revealed modernity's other face, he warns. Unchecked rationalization and engineering of modernity make the next genocide imminent. But since we can't return to pre-modernity, what prevents civilization's descent into horror? Ugh. Bauman answers morality, not modernity's product, but born in civilization's dawn, is unconditional responsibility for others. He reminds us, even during the Holocaust's darkest hours, moral heroes emerged, like Dr. Bergman, who refused to surrender Jews, offering only himself and family. Another Lieberman tore the bride money to shreds, threw it in the German overseer's face, and roared, "You bloody brutes! This is the price you pay for sending us off." He was shot dead on the spot. The Bereza Kartuska Jewish Council received orders from the Germans to select a detachment of Jews to work in Russia. All members committed collective suicide during a meeting on September 1st, 1942. These people's moral actions did not save them from death. But if all Jews had acted like them, the Nazi genocide wouldn't have proceeded so smoothly. On the Nazi side, one can also see the power of morality. And most famous example is probably Schindler's List. However, such examples are as rare as morning stars because modern systems suppress morality and bureaucracy replaces moral responsibility with technical duty. And modern society's atomizing tendency turns people into isolated, indifferent individuals. But precisely because of this, we should value morality even more. In any situation, a person must unconditionally shoulder their moral responsibility. No matter what happens, one should do the right thing. This may sound impossible, but Bauman believes it's the only way to prevent another Holocaust. All right, that concludes our interpretation of Zygmunt Bauman's Modernity and the Holocaust for you. The listening notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.